All right. Is there anyone here yet? Let's see. Not yet. All right. Give it 2 more minutes here. Oh, we've got a few folks here already. Cool. All right. So 4 people here already. Um, we're going to get started in about 2 minutes. Feel free to say something in the chat. Say hello in the chat. Good day. All right. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about automations. Okay. And we'll get started in about 2 minutes. It's going to be very interactive. Okay. If you're here, I do want to hear from you. Tell me a little bit about what you're automating now. If you want to automate, things in your business, or is it more for work? So yeah, tell me about your automation stuff. We're going to get underway here in a minute. It's going to be good. Hey, Manoush. Cool. All right, so let's get started in 3, 2, 1. All right, so you're here to see what can be done. All right. Cool. All right, so I'm going to get started. All right. This is money making automations. Okay. This is a Q&A. So this is super interactive. Okay. I want you to ask questions. I want you to stop me if you feel like it. But yeah, I'm just going to tell you about the things you need to do to have automations that make money. Okay. So let's jump right into it. Okay. So the first question that I'm going to ask is, were you doing automations now? Are you doing them in your business, or are you doing them at work, at your job? Drop it in the chat. Tell me in the chat where you hoping to use automations, because I'll go over both of them. But likely, if you're here, you've got a business, or if you're watching this, because I'll save this afterwards. Because yeah, I'm sure if a couple people will watch it afterwards. But yeah, really, if it's at work, right? If you've got automations and you want to make money at work, the goal really should be, how do you accelerate what you're doing, right? So I like to think of things as far as inputs and outputs go. Okay. So at work, usually you have some kind of output, whether it's a report or just something that people expect of you, right? And the way that automation should work there is, you basically should be able to output more with automation. Okay. And in business, yeah, obviously the end result is more customers, more revenue. But there's like a 4-bucket system that I like to think about when I think about automations for me and also for clients, right? So this is going to be a live where I go over that. Okay. Cool. Got a lot of familiar faces here. All right. Cool. So yeah, work is just about increasing your output. Your automation should increase your output. In business, your automation should get you more customers, get you more sales, and keep that going. Okay. And again, I've got a 4 bucket framework that I'll go over, and hopefully that'll help. Okay. And make sure you stop me or ask any questions. Okay. Cool. So I'll tell you what this is not. Okay. This is not going to be a live about building an automated AI phone system that calls your leads and makes you $1 million while you sleep. Okay. That is not what I'm going to be going over today. Okay. I'm going to be going over the systems that people that are in my one-on-one program, and also what I do personally for my own businesses, right? The automations that you need to have in your business, right? Or install in other people's businesses, right? Cool. So I'm going to go over the platforms that I use. Okay. For me, it's really simple. For you, it might be different, right? But I know there's a lot of LTD people here probably are watching. So really, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Pabbly, it doesn't matter if it's Zapier. But for those kinds of tools, right? For the Zapiers of the world and the Pabbly's of the world, really, I only use them for triggers, right? So if this, then that, right? I don't like to bother with like coming up with custom solutions to talk to Google, to talk to all the different platforms that exist today, right? Um, it is my belief that Zapier and Pabbly, they have great big teams that can handle that for me, right? So Zapier for me, Pabbly for me is trigger based, if this and that. If this happens to this application, then do this and then move it to that application, right? Where I use packages, right, is for browser automations and personalization, right? So to add a personal touch to an automation, right? Because that's really the big unlock for me and for you, is to come up with automations, right, that feel like they're not automated. Okay, that's the goal that you want to keep in mind when you're creating automation. Okay. All right, let's see who's here. Good morning. Yes, the 4 buckets. Yes, you're gonna want to stick around for the 4 buckets. All right. Cool. Yeah. So for most businesses, honestly, the things that you need to automate will be, or that you want to build your automations around, are form filling out, right? People that fill out forms. So you want to build automations that start when an inbound lead comes in. Okay. Um, and I'll get into that in the 4 buckets, but like, yeah, every business, every big business, right? And any service-based business, they're built around basically type form, some sort of form, right? And then some sort of calendar where you're doing one-on-ones or talking to customers and prospects. Okay. So that should be like your, like the thing that kicks off everything. Okay. Um, yeah, let's see what we got here. So we've got about 14 people here. That's great. Okay. So, and again, feel free to stop me if you have any questions. But this is really going to be the meat and potatoes of today's live. Okay, so it's this 4 bucket framework. Okay, when it comes to automating anything. Okay, and again, this is if you are a person or a company that like builds automations for people, like this is kind of what you need to sell them, right? You need to sell them like, I can help you get customers. I can help you nurture your customers. I can help you get sales, and I can help you with continuity, keep getting sales, right? But with this 4 bucket framework, right, that I kind of like to use, if you install this in any business and if you get each of these automations right, you will basically never run out of money, never run out of customers, right? Um, but when you think about automation, okay, when you think about automation, it's not just, and I know there's a lot of technical people here today. Um, when you think about automations, you can't really get lost in like the technical part of it, right? Like the JavaScript or if I get a lead from here, I need to move it here, right? Like, don't get lost in that. You need to remember that most of, if not all, your automations are involving people, right? And the only way to get money or the only way for a business to grow is to transform people. And I know it sounds cheesy, okay? But you need to think of the transformation that's going to come once this automation or any automation like fully completes, right? So once we acquire a customer, nurture them, get the sale, and get them to keep buying, like you need to think about, how can I transform this customer or this prospect via automation? Okay. Felipe is here. Okay. What's going on? Cool. So I'm going to jump into the customer acquisition automations. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. Okay. Cool. So also one more thing that I want to say about automations, right? Because I've seen this time and time again. I've done hundreds of hours of one-on-ones, right? And one thing that people fall into, especially extremely technical people, the first thing they want to automate, they don't care about customer acquisition, which is probably the most important thing that you should automate, right? They focus on the fulfillment and like the sales automation, like what happens when I get a sale, or right, like automating everything around the sale when you haven't got sales yet, right? So these automations will never trigger because you're so focused on the fulfillment, right, or getting the sale. So don't fall into that trap. Again, I will show you how to build the right automation system with these 4 buckets. Okay. And one more thing before I jump into customer acquisition, your system is perfect. You've got the perfect automation system when the only thing you have to do is make content. Okay. Because your content will start off your customer acquisition automation. Okay. And then you might be saying, oh, well, content, right? Like, what if I don't get any views, right? Or how am I going to get people to see my content, right? And to that, I always say ads. Ads work great, and especially if you think about the 4 bucket framework, right? Like, if the goal of your video or your content or your whatever, the blog post, whatever your content is, right? If the goal of your content is to start off the customer acquisition journey, the customer acquisition automation, right? Where they're on your list, or right, they downloaded your lead or whatever. If the goal of your content is to get them on your list, right, and not to get a sale, and you let your complete automation system handle the rest, like, life becomes a lot easier. Okay. So with that, I will start with the customer acquisition automation and how you need to think about it. Okay. So the first thing that you need to do, and this is what I tell everyone, is you need to get creative about adding people to your list. Okay. And especially, and I know there's a lot of technical people here, but when you think about what most people do is when they think about adding someone to their list, right? And they think about automation, right? They're like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a landing page that says, get on my newsletter, right? And then on this landing page, what it's going to have is like a name, a 3-field name, last name, whatever, and then email address, and then boom, submit. And then I'm going to have a Zapier automation that like adds that to my kit list or my MailerLite list, and then I'm done. That's my customer acquisition automation, and I'm done, right? And that is not the way to do it. Okay, like that's how you get the most unqualified, the most unengaged people on your list, and then you're wondering why you don't get sales. It's because you're not activating your list, right, or your potential prospects. So instead, when you think about your customer acquisition automation, right, because at the end of the day, it is going to be that, right? It is going to be an automation technically that someone gets on a list, right? And then, they fill out a form, and then they get on your list, and then they're on your list, right? But you need to get creative about that. Okay. You need to think about like creating an asset or creating some sort of page that like reveals a problem. Okay. Like you need to create a list, right, of people that have a problem, right? And yeah, I would love if in the chat you could tell me like what you do or what your business does. But like, for instance, let's say I am a automation expert, right? And I want automation clients, right? What you wouldn't lead with is I wouldn't say like, hey, do you need to automate your business? That's like the wrong approach, right? That's the wrong approach. It might seem like the logical approach to say, hey, I can automate everything. And you might get people by doing that, right? But you won't get the majority of the market, right? What you need to do is you need to have something that says, hey, you're a business and you have this problem, right? And you need to reveal the problem in an interesting way. For instance, you could have a quiz, right? So you got to have a quiz that says, how much time are you spending doing X, Y, and Z, right? In your business, right? Like every business owner would fill out that quiz, right? But at the end of the quiz, what would you do? You would reveal a problem. Okay. So you would say, oh my gosh, you're spending, 40 hours a week doing that, right? I can fix that, right? So then you add that, and like get on my list to see how I can fix that problem for you. So it's the same thing, right? You're still getting people on your list. You're still acquiring customers, but you're doing it by revealing a problem, right? And you use the quiz to reveal the problem. You can use blog posts to reveal the problem. But I think quizzes are probably the coolest way to reveal problems, especially when you think about like AI and how you can customize it based on who's filling out the form, right? And that's where packages is really good, is that like, yeah, you can connect all the dots and then, yeah, create like a custom email based on their inputs. Okay. But yeah, I have this one little part on this slide that says you want to reveal a problem. So you want to reveal the problem. That's really important. You want to evoke emotion and you want it to feel unique to them. So whenever they fill out this form, whenever the automation is about to trigger that gets them on the list, you want it to feel like this is for me. This is not some like cookie cutter automation. Like this is tailor made for me and my business and this specific problem I have. Okay. So that is the customer acquisition piece. piece of my 4 bucket framework. Okay. And then the next thing is nurturing. Okay. And nurturing is actually a thing that like needs to happen consistently. And this is something that I could get better at, right? I don't email my list a lot, right? But whatever your business is, like you need to nurture them a lot. Okay. So one thing that people do, right, when it comes to nurturing, and this is something that I've seen in my program, is people will get someone on their list and maybe they nurture them for 5 days. And in that 5 day sequence, it's literally like buy my thing, right? That's all it is. It's like buy now, right? And that is not the way to do it. Okay. For most businesses, right? And again, going back to my my belief that most businesses are built on basically Calendly and like Typeform, right? It's this combination of forms and calendar bookings, right? The way that you need to build your nurturing automation for yourself, right, or for the businesses you work with, right? It's something you need to offer to them, right? The way that you need to build your nurturing automations is you need to think in terms of years and not like days or weeks. You need to have a nurturing sequence, and it sounds crazy, right? Like, how am I going to nurture them for a year, right? But you need to think in terms of years, right? Because then, even once you build the nurturing automation, right, it's just going to work. Once you get someone on your list, you're going to be emailing them for a year without thinking about it, right? Without having to constantly like draft a newsletter so that everyone on your list is hearing from you. Once you have a year-long nurturing sequence, right, and not asking for a sale, right? You want to ask them to take the next step, right? Once you've revealed the problem to them, your nurturing sequence is just about how do we fix this problem, right? And not click here to buy to fix the problem, but like, here's a one-on-one call to figure out like how to fix this problem in your specific business, right? And the one-on-one call does not have to be an hour long. It can be 15 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, but that's what it takes to take your business to the next level. Like, especially in the age of AI where everything is automated, I think we're going to see like this resurgence of one-on-one, like real people being involved in the sales process, right? That is going to be your competitive advantage. So yeah, this nurturing piece is super duper important, especially as AI becomes more popular, because you want to embed like a human in the loop in your sales process, in your automations as much as possible. So, and you can do this, right? And I've got these 4 things here that are really good things to include in your nurturing sequence. So not trying to get them to buy, but trying to get them to see that there's a human in this automation, right? So again, one-on-one calls, discovery calls, webinars like this, right? This is kind of like a live / a webinar, right? And then YouTube videos, right? That illustrate how to solve the problem, but like also tell them like, hey, I can solve it for you, right? So that's what your nurturing automation should do. Is it should tell people that there's a real human, right? And it should do it over the course of at least a year. And that doesn't mean 365 emails a year. You could pull that off with just 1 email a week, right? So 52 emails, right? But that's something that people will get, right? Once you've triggered the customer acquisition automation, okay? All right, so there's 2 more pieces of the bucket, okay? But before we get there, I just want to know, how often do you email your list? Do you have a list? I know there's a few people here, so maybe we'll see some answers come through in a little bit. So I will wait for somebody to answer my question. But yeah, no, when I think about automation, right? And again, try not to be technical about it, but it is really just getting people to do what you want them to do in the most efficient way possible, right? Or doing what you want to do in the most efficient way possible. Because at the surface, what automations really do is they save you time, right? They save you from clicking around. They save you from going from one app to the next. Like, that's at the surface level what happens, right? But one of the fun things I like to do, because I'm a business-minded person, right? One of the fun things I like to do is like look at Zapier and their pricing, right? There's people in the world that are paying thousands of dollars a month for Zapier, right? And at those levels, they're not paying those prices because they've got, they got to move a lot of stuff from one app to the next. No, they're paying that much because they're making so much money automating sort of like their sales processes, right? That it makes sense to give $1,000 or $2,000 to Zapier, right? So this is the way you need to think about automations, and this is the way you need to pitch your automations. Cool. So then we've got some answers. All right. So Gerald says definitely not enough, probably quarterly. Okay. Yeah. No, you want to. Yeah. So the game is mind share. Okay. You want to be in the mind of your prospect or your customer like as often as possible, right? And I like to give this example to people that ask me about emails and automation. There's a service that I bought recently, right? And it's a pretty, it's, I guess it would be a higher ticket service. It's $1,000 to get it, right? But they've been in my inbox for the last like year and a half, right? And I've been seeing them, and every time I get an email, I don't even read the email. It's literally a reminder that like I need to buy this thing. I need this service, and I finally pulled the trigger earlier this month, but like I probably would have not pulled the trigger with them if they weren't in my inbox bugging me, right? And it doesn't even have to be, again, you don't have to like be really like cerebral about what you say. It doesn't have to be super duper crazy. You just need to be there, right? So Nicole says about once a week, now closer to once every 2 weeks. That's okay. Yeah. So you're still, if you do that, you'll be talking to them for the whole year, once a month. So that's not bad. All right. Mark says no list yet. Probably my biggest mistake, but right now I wouldn't know what to do with these emails. No nurturing sequence or such yet. Okay. So yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The cool thing about a list is you can start building your list today or tomorrow or next week, right? So like, but you need to think about, you need to have a list, right? Because yeah, if you have like this live, I thought to do it like yesterday, right? I just emailed the list and people showed up. So it's good to have a list. So work on building your list, but also work on building a list and thinking about these 4 buckets: the customer acquisition, nurturing, and then the other 2, which I will get into. Cool. So now we can get into sales and fulfillment. All right. So when it comes to sales and fulfillment, one thing that I see a lot of people do is like they'll get sales, right? And then they're scrambling, right? And especially when you think about like a higher ticket offer, right? Like let's say you've got something that's like, you got a service or a product that's like $10,000, right? Once you get a sale, then it's like you're scrambling to like add them to whatever your CRM is, or there's all these different steps in your process, right? That you're doing manually, which you shouldn't, right? So depending on what a sale or fulfillment looks like for you, I've got these things, right? Account should automatically be set up, right? So in my program, right, what I typically do is when someone signs up, there's all these automations that happen. Their base camp gets created. They get a welcome email, right? I don't have onboarding really, but there are emails that get sent out that say, hey, book your first call, right? So if you have a SaaS, right, like obviously since it's a SaaS, you should, all this automation should be taking place inside your app, right? But just thinking about more like service oriented businesses, like you literally, like once a sale comes in, you should be able to press a button, and then like the only thing that's left to do is actually do the work, right? Whatever that work entails, right? One of the other things that I love to think about when it comes to sales and fulfillment and the automation around that is this piece right here, which is the Facebook pixel firing. Okay. Now, why do I love and why do I think that this is the most important piece? It's because the Facebook, I love ads. Okay. Ads are like the best thing in the world. All right. AI is not the best thing. It's ads, right? By getting the Facebook pixel firing, it tells Facebook like this is the kind of person that buys this particular product, right? So by getting the pixel to fire, Facebook knows exactly what people look like, right? So like if you fire a pixel for a particular person and I run ads with that particular goal, it's going to find more people who have similar traits, right? So that's one of the automations that need to happen during the sales and fulfillment process is you need to fire a pixel so that if you run ads, not today, but in the future, like Facebook already knows like who your customer looks like because the pixel fired. Okay. Um, and then the last bucket, right, as far as like automations go, okay, is continuity. Okay. And what do I mean by continuity? I just mean getting people to keep buying, right? So using myself as an example, one of the things that I do in my program is I have an automation that goes out periodically that says, hey, don't forget to book your call. Uh, don't forget to hit me up on Basecamp if you have any questions, right? But then there's also another thing that I do that it's funny. A few people have noticed this in the program where I say, hey, do you want to pause? Here's a link to pause, right? Um, and it's funny. I mean, people have paused, right? But a lot of people haven't. But that's a trust building exercise, right? That's like me saying, hey, like, uh, if you don't want to keep going, that's okay. And I'll make it really easy to stop, right? So those are sort of the things that you need to keep in mind when it comes to automating continuity, automating people sticking around, right? You need to remind them why they're there, and you need to give them an easy way to stay or an easy way to stop, right? Because that builds trust, and that's really at the end of the day why people buy things is because they trust you, they trust that you can deliver on the promise. Okay, so what that might look like for you, especially if you have a business with a recurring component or a business with the ability for people to ascend, so to buy something that's more expensive, right, is you can use like things like automated renewal reminders, things that prevent churn, right? Um, so basically, this could be things like getting them to use your product or getting them to take the next step, right? Because uh, ideally, in a perfect world, you have a business where there's multiple steps, right? So by them getting your product or service, right, like buying, actually committing to it, right, it reveals. You got to keep revealing problems, okay? Like, so yeah, churn prevention emails or anything or any sort of email that tells them like, hey, there's another level, right? Um, and yeah, so and I mentioned that on this last bullet point, which is invite them to take the next step or ascend. Okay. Um, let's see what we got here. So yeah, so how do I make money? Okay, that is I don't think I've touched a lot on the money making component of this, right? This 4 bucket framework, but like uh all the money is made, right? When you have these automations in your business, right? Or you're making it for other people, all the money is made uh, with the product or service or the outcome that you promise, right? So for my one-on-one program, which doesn't have any more spaces, but it's the promise of growth, right? Like the things required to grow your business. Okay. Um, I just think about like software as a service, right? What is the promise of your software as a service, right? Like if it's B2B, it's typically saving money, making money, or saving time, right? Like, but if it's B2C, it's usually like relationships, weight loss, or I forget what the other thing is, wealth. Yeah. So um, the way that you make money with your automations is you have a product or service, right? Like that's really the only way to make money in the world is you have a product or a service, right? But the mistake that people often make, right, is they say, okay, I've got a product and a service. Now, how do I market it, right? And the way you market it is you can run ads or you can write blog posts, or you can talk about it, but you need to have these automations in place because people typically don't see a product and say, okay, I want it. Where do I buy? Right? They need to be convinced, right? And you need to build trust, right? But with these 4 automations, right? So if you have an automation centered around acquiring the customer, where it's focused on revealing a problem, right, or pain, right? So we acquire them through pain or revealing a problem, right? And that just gets them on their list and introduces them to our world or your world, right? And then the nurturing automation, right? So that this is like a year of nurturing. Um, that automation is going to build trust, right? And hopefully get them to take the next step, whether it's directly purchasing your product or service or getting on a call, right? And then the automations around sales and fulfillment. So like when a sale does happen, you're not scrambling, right? And then, like I mentioned on the previous side, continuity. So getting them to buy more. Okay. Um, that is pretty much the bread and butter of making money with automations. Okay. But I do want to dedicate a lot of the rest of the time, right? Because that was 30 minutes. I do want to dedicate the remaining 30 minutes to questions. Okay. And I want to know more about the businesses that you guys have. Okay. Because I know a lot of people here have packages, right? So maybe some of you don't. But yeah, when it comes to automation, the thing that I think about is, again, not thinking about taking data from one app and moving it to the next, right? Like that's not how I think about automation. The way you really should think about automation is how do I make an automation sequence or a set of automation so robust that I could send, 5,000 people to this thing that's going to kick off the customer acquisition automation, and like through math, right? People will trickle down through these 4 buckets, and then at the end of the bucket, there will be, 10% of people will buy, or 5%, right? That's how you have to think about automations, right? That's how you have to think about, like, if you build automation for people, you need to tell them, right, in your pitch or, on your calls, like, yeah, my automations are going to change the trajectory of your business, right? Because I'm going to install customer acquisition automation. I'm going to install nurturing, right? Sales and fulfillment, continuity, right? That is really the game. Don't think about automation as like this really technical thing. Think about it as, I want 5,000 customers, but I need to automate it so that I don't need 100 employees to fulfill these 5,000 customers, right? Cool. Okay. So yeah, thank you for that. So I do want to take questions. I do want to. So yeah, what I want to do now is I want you to tell me what your business is, right? And I'll tell you how you need to think about automation. Okay. So she says, I'm a web designer, but I have problem finding clients. What's up? I'm a web designer, but I have problems finding new clients. I'm still searching for an opportunity to find and reach out to companies automatically. Okay. So this is a great question. I don't typically like cold outreach. Okay. So I don't ever reach out to a business. Okay. And the way, because I used to be like a web designer, right? I used to be like someone who built websites for people, and that was how I made my money, right? If I were to sell web designing services today using this like automation framework, right, is I would start with a problem that businesses have, right? Because web design and web development, every business needs it. It's like a universal thing, right? But most businesses don't go, you know what? I need a web designer right now, right? Instead, they say, I need more clients, or, I need, yeah, that's really the universal problem of business is I need more clients, right? So how do you get more customers? To me, the answer is always like, if you want customers fast, run ads, but you need to run ads not to say I'm a web designer. You need to run ads and say, I can fix this problem for you, right? And the way that you do that is you say you have a problem, right? Like, I'm going to reveal this problem to you. Take this quiz, right? And it's going to reveal a problem, and then I'm going to give them a really quick 1-hour solution. Okay, so this is how you fix that problem by yourself, but it's kind of hard. I can fix it for you, right? So you just got to start thinking about like the problems that a business might have and what you're really good at solving for them, right? And again, the universal problem for a business is I need more customers. There's so many other problems that businesses have, right? But yeah, I hope that helps, and you can ask more questions in the chat, and I can answer them. Here's another question from Calvin. He says, I'm not familiar with your packages program. Can you give a brief description? This is a great question. Okay, so packages is really just my own automation platform that I built. Okay, and it's really it's an interesting thing to describe, but it is really just an automation platform. Think about it as there's 2 things that it does. It does browser automation, right, which I don't think Zapier is really great at. So it does browser automation. So think like, yeah, if I've got, like an invoice, right? Like I have like this proprietary invoice software, and I want to create an invoice really quickly without thinking about it. I wanted to do it every night at 5 p.m. or 10 p.m., right? Packages can do that. But it's also really good at at like custom personalized automation, right? So like if you want to send an email, right? So this is something that I did for someone in my program. So it sends a specific email that recommends specific YouTube videos based on how they fill out a form, right? Um, so like that's not something that you can do in Zapier really easily, right? Like, but Packages is really great at that, like personalized automation, right? So yeah, that's what Packages does. Okay. So we've got another question. It says, "Oh, and is it there a possible automation to find pain points, maybe through Scrape Reddit via Packages?" So yeah, this is a good question. So the way that I think about this, right, is you don't have to really go to Reddit to find these pain points, right? Because I tend to think of things from like a universal standpoint, right? So what's the universal pain points that a business has? Because if a business has a problem, like let's say in Miami, Florida, right? I'm guarantee you there's a business in Germany that also has that same problem, right? So you don't even have to go to Reddit. You can probably just ask ChatGPT, right? Like, and I like to do this thing where I work backwards, right? So I think about what's a problem that a business would be willing to pay $10,000 for, right? That I can fix with like web design or like my web development skills, right? Because then it becomes really easy. And I think especially someone starting out, right? You'd be like, why would a bit $10,000? Like, how am I going to provide $10,000 worth of value? Well, if you think about it, you probably already do, right? You probably work somewhere, or we've all worked somewhere where over time, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, like we get $10,000 worth of income, via our paycheck, right? So you're already doing that. But to find the pain points, ChatGPT can tell you, right? You can say, hey, I want to make $10,000. These are my skills. This is what I know how to do. How can I frame an ad that, or how can I create a quiz that reveals a problem that businesses have that I can solve given my skills and, a $10,000 price tag that I want to add to it, right? Because here's what ends up happening. Okay, this is really the game as far as business goes, right? Especially when you talk about high ticket sales, right? Is the next time you're scrolling on Facebook, look at the ads. Okay, look at the ads that you're served. If it's not an e-commerce store, it is basically a business that is selling a service. Okay, and the service typically is $10,000 or more. Okay, or maybe it's $5,000, right? But before they ask for that sale, what they're doing, and if you look at it from the point of view of like these automation systems, these 4 buckets, right? What they're doing is they're trying to get you as a customer, right? So you're in their funnel and they're trying to get you via this ad to become a customer, and they're not asking you for the sale immediately. The first thing they're asking for is your time. So it's an automation typically it's an automation based on getting you on a call. So they either do it via like a one-on-one call, so like a Calendly booking, or they do it via like a webinar. Okay. But that is really the game in a nutshell. If you can find a problem, right, that most businesses have, and you can solve it in a certain amount of time, all you have to do is run ads, right? It might cost you, like for me, for the ads that I've ran for my program, right, to cold traffic, it was about $20 a book call, right? But if you can get someone on a call to solve their problem, like it really is a numbers game. It's really just about how many calls can I take, right? So that I can solve their problem. So that's what I would say is to answer this question, finding pain points, don't make it complicated. Don't like Scrape Reddit or do the LinkedIn thing. Ask ChatGPT and it will tell you. That is probably the good first step. All right. Does anyone have any more questions or tell me about your business? I want to tell you how I would architect the automation so that you can send 5,000 people to your automation, your customer acquisition automation, and then it trickles down to nurturing, sales, and then continuity. So yeah, I'm looking for some comments here. All right. Thank you. You select. Let me pull up this. So I always watch your live videos. I bought your last course. You're the best. Keep going. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, there's more lives coming. Trust me. I am committed to going live. I've told myself that I am going to try and go live twice a month, maybe. But doing it with cold traffic, right? It's easy to get your list to show up, right? Your warm list to show up, or a percentage of them. It's hard to get cold traffic to do anything. So that's the real challenge. Once you figure out how to get cold traffic to do what you want, you can do. The world is yours. All right. So Gerald has a question. He has an online bakery selling Bundt pound cakes. Okay, so this is a good one. Okay. Um, so when I think about an online bakery, okay, when I think about a bakery in general, right, there's always two types of customers. Okay, you've got your repeat customers who like they can't live without their stuff, right, and then you've got the customers who come for a particular event. Okay, and you can market to these both of these customers, right, at the same time, right. So when I think about your online bakery, and you can talk in the chat, and you can tell me in the chat uh, the customer profile, like who usually comes in, right? But the way that I would market it, and thinking it from the in terms of so repeat customers and like customers that only come for certain events, right? The way that I would get the customer acquisition automations going for the events, right, is go to Google, right? Because when people have a certain need for a certain event, they go straight to Google, right? So it's like maybe they need a birthday cake, right, or a custom whatever, right? Whatever they need, they're doing a Google search for that. So that will kick off your customer acquisition automation, right? The cool thing about something that is okay, so yeah, most customers are repeat and come from for holidays. Perfect. So it's that two tier of repeat or a certain event or a holiday, right? So for the people that are coming for an event, right, or some sort of event, your nurturing sequence, your customer access, this is going to be like super compressed, right? Because for whatever the event is, like let's say it's a birthday, right? Um, if the birthday is a month out, or if it's like 2 weeks out, you have to be really like intentional about getting the person, closing them, right? And you might even close them on the call. Like once they contact you, they might tell you everything they need to know, and then bam, you're taking their credit card, right? So yeah, what I would tell you, right, without being super long-winded, is yeah, thinking about um, events, I would go straight to Google, right? Because the Facebook ads are more around like building your brand, and like they're really good for people to stop the scroll and like get people on board when the need is always there, right? But for something that's event based, straight to Google, because the intent is already baked in. They're searching for something they need now, right? Now if you want to talk about people who you want to discover you, right, that's a whole different type of marketing, where I would probably lean on Facebook, right? So you're probably showing people like uh the cakes that you make, right, and how to get on your list for their event that might be coming up that you don't know about yet, or they don't know about yet, right? And then that's when you start doing things from like you have the nurturing campaign that is a year long, right? So that you're always telling them, hey, like here's our specials that we have. Check out this cool cake that we made. It's really delicious, right? So that's how I would do it for cakes and a bakery. Okay. Um, so Calvin says I help med spa providers get more clients. Cool. So for this one, right, this is what you're going to do with this one. All right. This is how your automations are going to be set up. Okay. So you are definitely, I've seen these ads already. So the game plan is really simple, right? Your customer acquisition, right, automation is going to be, you can do anything you want. You can do quizzes, right? You can do one-on-one calls, right? But it is, I mean, you spelled it out here. It's to get more clients, right? So, yeah, you have a video ad and you say, hey, do you have a med spa, right? And maybe what you do is you say, and I don't know where you're based. I don't know if you're in the U.S. or where you are in the world, but yeah, the cool thing with ads is you can say, and this gets people's attention, because the goal is to stop the scroll and to get their attention, right? So you stop the scroll and then you say, are you in whatever city they're in, right? Because when you set up the ad, right? Hey, are you a med spa owner in Houston, Texas. Well, get a load of this, right? Because I found this loophole in Houston, and it's getting our clients a bunch of clients, right? By making an ad that speaks that way, right? And not going straight for the sale, right? So not sending them to a page that says, "Hey, this is how much it costs, $10,000," right? No, you need to get them to calls. You need to get them on one-on-one calls, right? And I don't know, how do you get customers now? Tell me in the chat how you get customers now. But that's really the game. Like, it's just a one-on-one call funnel, right? And then once you exhaust that, like once you're tired of the one-on-one calls, right? And the automations are doing their work, right? You graduate to webinars, right? You graduate to one-to-many, right? So you get a bunch of med spa owners in the same, live Zoom call, right? Once you've like nailed down your sales process and your pitch, and then you're selling one-to-many, and that's really the game. But first, I would start with call funnel, like get people on your Calendly, run ads to that, and then you're off to the races with your various the four buckets of automation, where it's customer acquisition, nurturing, sales and fulfillment, and then keeping them on, right? And I don't know your business structure or whatever, but that's really the game. All right, here's Nicole. Hey, Nicole. Nicole's awesome. So aside from SaaS, how can I use packages for a clinic-based business to get more clients? Would it be triggered from a form? Okay, cool. So the way you would do it, right, is you would use a form, right? But what's more important than the form is actually the thing that gets them to fill out the form, right? When I think about the things that get people to fill out forms, because that's really, like, when you think about the internet, when I think about the internet is really just a place where people fill out forms and like money is made, right? So to get people to fill out a form, whether it's SaaS, right, whether it's sign up for your SaaS or to like get on a call, you have to think about what is the pain that they want to run away from, right? And for a clinic-based business to get more clients, right? If they're at a clinic, there's some sort of pain or care that is needed, right? So the thing that I like to think about, right, especially when you're thinking about businesses, are they already being cared for? Or is this like a new problem that came about, right? So the marketing campaign is going to be different. And if they're already being taken care of, if they're already part of another clinic, then the campaign needs to be around, this is why our clinic is better than the rest, right? And then fill out this form to take the next step, right? And if they are not part of a clinic, right, there's another campaign that's dedicated to just saying, really highlighting their pain and saying, hey, here's your pain. It's travel health consultations for travel. Okay. So yeah, the other campaign is pain focused, right? So like getting away from pain, get on, like, fill out the form or sign up to, or get on a call so that we can get rid of the pain. So yeah, that's, and Nicole will probably talk about this on our next call, but cool. Let me see. So yeah, any other questions? We got 21 people here, more than when we started. I could do this all day long. But yeah, no, this is really it. And let me see here. I'm trying to see what else can I touch on, right? Because this is really, like, this is it. This is it. All you have to do is just get more people to kick off more automations. I promise you, if you find a way, right? Because I've had programs, I had software that gets thousands of signups a day, right? And this is just happening, all these parts of the funnel, right? All these automations are happening because I nailed the customer acquisition piece, right? And I didn't focus on the end product. I didn't focus on, like, obviously that's a thing that you have to focus on, right? But I didn't focus or obsess with, and this is a thing that a lot of people do. They obsess with the, like, fulfillment part. They obsess with the finished product, right? Or one thing that happens a lot in the SaaS too, right? Especially when we talk about lifetime deals, is people focus a lot on, and this isn't a bad thing, but this is something that you should have to be careful about. People focus on, like, making the product better, and, like, they stay there, like, they stay in this world of, like, making the product better, and they don't dedicate any resources, whether it's time or money, to acquiring customers, right? And then they end up being part of the Heavy Hearts community. I was actually talking to Noah AppSumo, Noah guy, right? He's like, he's trying to fix AppSumo, right? Because there's this heavy heart problem where businesses shut down, And I told him last week, I said, hey, I have this thing that I do, right? That is like, it tells me, it's like this little calculation that I come up with, right? That tells me when a company is like how the highest level of risk that they have to become part of the Heavy Heart community. And you know what it is? It's they don't have any traffic, right? Or they're not running ads, no SEO traffic and no ads equals Heavy Heart. Okay. And I'll tell you why that happens. It's because they don't have customer acquisition automations. There's like no customer acquisition happening, right? And if there's no customer acquisition happening, then you're stuck in like sales and fulfillment. Like you're stuck there, right? And you're not going to grow as a business, right? So you got to be really obsessed with customer acquisition. You got to be really like you have to be obsessed. And speaking about obsessed, right? Like you have to be obsessed with not just getting customers, but like with their problem, right? Like with the problems that they have. Like you have to be obsessed with understanding customer acquisition. So you have to be obsessed with like who they are, where they hang out, how they think, like just like how they speak, right? Or how they expect the person that's going to solve their problem to speak, right? Because that's the other thing. Like you have to be convinced. I have to be convinced, right? If I have the problem, I have to be convinced that you can solve it for me, right? And part of that convincing, like there's all these like intangibles, there's all these things that like it's not only like how your product looks, right? It's also how you speak about the problem, right? All these things are really important, but not to get too off track, but yeah, you gotta have you have to have these automations in place, and you have to be obsessed with getting customers and automating every step of the way, right? Because here's one thing that other people do too, right? Is they think that like, okay, my company, it's doing good. Now I just got to hire a bunch of people, and that's what a lot of people do, and I think that's a mistake because a lot of what people hire people to do, a lot of that can be automated, right? And that's part of the reason why I'm super like I don't hire people honestly, because most things can be automated. Let me see here. Anybody have any questions? We got 10 more minutes. I'd love to answer any more questions. There's about 18 people here. I haven't seen 18 businesses yet. I'd love for people to talk about their business and how you'd get these automations kicked off. Yeah. Let me see. What else can I talk about for the next 9 minutes? Customer acquisition. Let me see. Let me think. Because most people. I'm trying to think about people in my program. When will the Chrome extension of packages be released? That's a good question. So my question to you, Salvador. This is the first time anyone has really asked about the Chrome extension. How would you use that? Tell me how you would use that, right? Because the way that I use packages, right, is it's not. I guess you could like use it as you browse the web, right? But tell me, what would you automate if you had a Chrome extension? Because typically most of my packages automations are things that happen by itself, right? Like I'm not actively searching the web and saying, I'm on this website, let me kick off a packages automation, which is a great use case, by the way. But typically it's like my calendar's filled up in packages and that's how my automations run. Or it's a step in like a Zapier automation, right? So like, let's say, let me see what one of my automations is like, if a form is filled out on Typeform, like, or if like a sale comes in on Stripe, create a Basecamp space and then do this and do that, right? So like it's not it's not triggered manually via something I'm doing in the browser, but I'd be curious to see what you're doing uh, and how you would use a Chrome extension to packages. I don't have a date for that, but I mean, if you tell me what you would use it for, maybe I'd come up with a date. Um, yeah, but okay. So yeah, this is another thing that I actually didn't bring up on the slides that I think is really important, right? When I think about automations, right? Is reports. Okay, that is one thing that I probably should add to this slide once I do it again, if I ever do it again. But reports. Okay, I love reports. Okay, and it's funny. I use packages to oh, okay. So you're talking about the automation that actually builds a Chrome extension that builds your browser automation. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Um, so yeah, let me finish what I was saying about reports. Okay, so reports are extremely important, right? And that's one thing that I use packages for. Um, Typically, I've never seen this done with like a Zapier or your standard like triggered based automation, but I love reports, and uh, I start my morning off with like a Stripe report, how much money is going to come in today. I start my morning with a like a I call it like a traffic light system that says, okay, for all the clients in Basecamp, like who hasn't spoken to me in X amount of time, right? Or like when was their last call? Like that's another thing that you need to think about too, especially as your business gets bigger, is having reports that are mailed to you on a regular basis that tell you like the health of the business. But yeah, let's see this. Could packages scrape the web for a certain industry? It definitely can. But the thing that I like to tell people, right, especially when it comes to automation and automating anything, is thinking with these four things in mind, right? So scraping the web for a certain industry, like what is the goal with the scrape, right? Is the scrape for acquiring customers? Is the scrape for nurturing customers? Is it for sales and fulfillment, or is it for continuity, right? Uh, that is that is sort of the thing that I would ask when it comes to scraping, right? Because the way that I love scraping, um, for the simple fact that scraping lets you repurpose content, right? So especially with AI, in the past, right, when you scraped content, a human had to look at that data and say, okay, based on this scraped content, what are we going to do with it, right? But with AI, I typically use scraping just to create new content to feed the customer acquisition automation pipeline, right? Um, but yeah, so finding referral partners. So yeah, I think that that's something we should talk about. But yeah, you could definitely use it to scrape and find leads, right? Or yeah, and that would be definitely a customer acquisition or like a partnership automation, right? So yeah, you can definitely scrape with packages. I would say, especially for something like that, depending on the industry, a cool way to do that would be identifying who these potential partners are, and then using a tool like Apollo or Hunter.io to find their email address, and then like start a cold email campaign, and then that's how you trigger the automation for that, right? So yeah, just identifying who it is you want to target, and then like using another tool that's specialized in in getting their contact info. All right, so we've got another question here. It says, may I ask if there's a way to clone a package and not use up a package in our limit count, because my packages are used up by clone packages almost. Okay. Yeah, that's a good that's a good feature to have. Be sure to email me. Like, yeah, these questions, these are good questions to email, especially as you use packages. So yeah, help at niches.com with 3 S's, and then I can look at that for you. But it's kind of like a soft limit, so I'm not gonna stop you from like running packages and stuff. But I do think that's a good feature suggestion. Yeah. Um, Cool. So we've got 3 minutes left. These are going to happen pretty regularly. I am so obsessed with business and helping you guys with your businesses and making them grow. Uh, the name of the game is customer acquisition. Like if you can be obsessed with customer acquisition, right? And like understanding why someone would come to you, right? Like just the little things, right? Not just saying, because here's what most people do, right? When you think about their customer acquisition uh strategy or like automating things, right? Especially people in the LTD community, because my niches group is primarily like LTD people. I have other groups, right? But like this business stuff, I'm doing it mainly for the LTD, like the niches and packages group. Most people, when they think about customer acquisition, uh, they say they go straight to like blogs. Okay, like um, I'm trying to get customers uh for free. That's what the LTD people usually think, right? And it's like blogs. They just go straight to blogs, you know. Um, in real business, I mean, every business is real, but like at the highest level, basically you end up getting to a point where the only way to scale your business is with ads. Okay. So you need to think about how I can get customers, how I can build a business where ads are like the main driver, right? And if you think backwards, right, if you do everything with math and you think backwards, um, it's like, why would you not run ads? You know, because that is the way that you can scale as quickly as possible without waiting for any algorithm, without waiting for TikTok and hoping and praying that TikTok or YouTube or all these different places, like, don't get me wrong, they're great places to find customers and like to build content. I do it too, right? Not TikTok, but YouTube. But you want to think about yeah, ads as a way to like test and like get customers like today, and then just kick off your customer acquisition automation, which will then kick off your nurturing automation, which will then get you sales, and which will then get you continuity, which is more sales. All right, so Salvador has a great question. He says, how do you maintain packages? I mean, all the costs, like you have monthly recurring revenue. So this is what I tell people. Okay, and this is one thing, especially in the LTD community. It's like, do you have monthly recurring revenue? Like that's like the thing. And I say this, all right, I have a different approach to business. All my businesses have monthly recurring revenue, right? They all have that. That's kind of like you have to have that. But you need to create a business or a thing that can get customers, right, all the time. Okay. So uh I have courses, right? I can send an email to my list and I can say, hey, I have this thing, and a certain amount of people will buy it, right? Whether it's this one-on-one program that I'm doing, which does not have any spaces. All right, so don't ask about that. But yeah, the one-on-one program is one thing. The courses, and I have another piece of software that's coming out. But like, yeah, so the scheme is money. There is money. I make money, and money pays for all the things, right? So yeah, all my products have monthly recurring revenue. There's products that I don't advertise in with this group particularly because it's not really. I mean, they're the avatar. The you guys aren't the target market for it, right? Like I have software for Brazil, right? Because I am a Brazilian resident and I'm fluent in Portuguese. So yeah, I have products in Brazil. I have products for AI audio, which don't make any sense for the LTD world because it's extremely expensive to run that. But yeah, all my businesses make money and they pay for the costs, right? And AI is crazy cheap compared to what it was in 2021. It's insanely cheap, you know. Uh, when I think about niches was probably the like the biggest, boldest bet that I ever made in my life, business wise, because I gave unlimited access to GPT-3, extremely expensive, right? Like $6,000, $7,000 OpenAI bills, right? But the bet was that Google and other people would enter the market and the price would go to basically zero, and it has done that. So yeah, to answer your question, how do I keep up with the costs? I have businesses that make money, a lot of different ones. Uh, yeah, so yeah, the niches usually uses whatever the latest model is. So 5 now, I think 5 is what we're on now. So yeah, uh, cool. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna do this more often. This is the live for. This is mainly for yeah, people on my list. So people who have bought, everyone who's here probably has bought something from me in the past, whether it's niches or packages or my one-on-one program. So yeah, thank you. This is going to happen more often. I'm going to do it though with, so this will happen with cold traffic, right? So eventually there will be a lot more people here that will not know me, all right, that will never have bought anything from me before. So the vibe will be a little different. You'll probably be able to feel the vibe being different, but this is like a cool vibe. This is like people that rock with me, that have got my stuff, and I really appreciate that. That's why I dedicate my time on a Saturday to talk about these things and take your questions. But yeah, no, this is going to be a regular occurrence. There is a new piece of software that I have that I'm working on coming out, which is for webinars. Okay, so it's basically for it's going to be basically something that you use when you do a webinar, and where you get people filling out stuff and like, you know, the whole like doing quizzes and making webinars and live events more interactive, right? Because I'm telling you, I've made a lot of money with AI, right? The future is this, something like this, where it's interactive, where you can get people in a room and say, hey, I can solve your problem, right? And this is how I'm going to solve it for you, right? And you illustrate how to solve it. And maybe people might look at it and say, oh, this is too complicated, you know? And then that's when you say, hey, I can do it for you. Here's the price, right? But yeah, that's the direction I feel like the world is headed. And that's kind of what I'm going to dedicate my life to going forward, is like, yeah, helping people and doing it in this fashion where it's like one to many and it's super efficient. And, you know, there might be a day where there's 100, 200 people on this call, right? But that is definitely the direction the world is headed. Okay. And yeah, so we'll see how it goes. And yeah, so let me see the last post here. Thank you. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can make a post about that. Okay. Yeah, so this was a great call. Thank you everybody for coming. I'll definitely post this on YouTube and it'll probably be available right after this ends. So yeah, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, be free to send me an email. All right. Don't be shy. All right. Or post it in the Facebook group. All right. See you later, guys. Have a great weekend. Take care.